You're very welcome here to the Cathedral Hall in Derry beside St Eugene's Cathedral. We have a very interesting conversation to go through today, which may be of interest to people not just in the city but well beyond. With me I've got Garry Matthewson, a famous primary school principal in Holy Family Primary School here in the city in Ballymacrorty, who's just recently retired, so young though he may seem. And he developed over the last couple of years a very interesting project with his P7, is that right, Garry? P7s in the school, to examine their environment, not just in terms of knowing the plants and the animals and the bushes and the flowers, but also knowing their physical environment and church environment. And I want to have a conversation with Garry because he's done something in the city, but it can be replicated, can be repeated in many other places as well, with some of this vivid imagination that he's brought to his environment that you can bring to your environment. Tell us where this project came from initially, Garry.
Well, in actual fact, it started in an interview for a principal's post. I was doing an assessor for a principal's post, and one of the candidates mentioned about their parish and how they were trying to get the children engaged in the wider parish in terms of their faith. And driving back from that meeting, or that interview, it started running in my head, what could I do in our local parish within the city? And that's where the idea came from. And because I had done a pilgrimage with Father Chris many years ago with young people from the waterside to the Camino de Santiago.
Oh, yes.
Right? So we then decided we would call it the Derry Mino.
The Derry Mino. Not
Derry
the Camino,
Mino.
But the Derry Mino.
The Derry Mino.
Brilliant.
So that's where it originated. And then when I went back into my own memory, I did something similar in 1988 when I was a teacher in St Anne's, a primary 7 teacher. I did the same thing. I visited churches, but then I was put into primary 6 and I didn't continue that on. But after the interview with for the post up the country, I decided that we would implement it, and we implemented it 2 years ago. So it's been running 2 years now, and the children love it. The staff love it, and they get so much out of it.
And tell us, what form does it take? Does it mean it means walking somewhere, or being bussed, or how do you do it?
Well, what we did is, first and foremost, the purpose of it was to enable the children to understand that the church is a natural place for them to be. Throughout their life, it's a natural place for them to be. No matter where they end up in the world, they will find the Catholic Church, and what was inside the Catholic Church will be the same the world over. There might be differences in buildings, but the key elements will be the same. So it was with that idea to say that the church is a natural place for you to be. You should be popping in at any time for a prayer or just for peace and quiet. And then we said, right, we want you to know about the spiritual history of this city, because your grandparents and great-grandparents and priests all contributed to the city and the spiritual history of this city, which is absolutely amazing when you dig into it. And also, we wanted the children to have physical activity. And so therefore, the structure was that the children would walk from Holy Family Primary School to all the different churches in the city. In the city side and as far as St Colum's in the waterside. So we each Friday or Thursday, whatever day of the week it would suit, we did 2 churches. So for example, we walked from Holy Family to Long Tower, and then we also went to the chapel in Lumen Christi College. Another day we would have walked to Steelstown and went to St Bridget's and Cairnhill also. So we managed 2 churches each day, and the reason why we did that is because the physical time and weather wouldn't permit you to go to 1 church per day. But during that process, they also found out about their local history. So we would have stopped at various locations in the city. So for example, John Clifford Park opposite the cathedral there used to be known as Bull Park. And our ex-vice principal, Paul Hearn's father, wrote a trilogy of books which the children read in school called Macaulay's War. And so the 3 books were located in that area, basically from John Clifford Park up to the Rosemount factory. And so the children are very familiar with the books, and then they get familiar with the locations, and then the social history of what happened in my life and all our teachers' lives living in these areas. So it was social history, it was physical activity, And also, and most importantly, it was about the history of the church, the contribution that the parishes made and their grandparents and family made in past generations, and then finding out about the specifics of the church, the altar, the sanctuary lamp, the tabernacle, etc., etc.
Okay, so P7 was the age you went for.
Yes.
What sort of things did the children learn, or the young people learn? What struck you about how much of a learning environment it provided for them?
It was huge because, well, first and foremost, there was a physical challenge. Because at the start, for each of the trips, we did a risk assessment to ensure that, because the journey was time-bound, that we were walking, so you can imagine walking from Holy Family up to St Mary's and Craigan, and then out to Termabacca. So it was a long journey, and it had to be done in a certain time frame. So there was a physical activity that gained so much. There were children we felt wouldn't be able to do some of the trips because of their physicality. But the children stepped up to the mark and made a huge effort. So even before we started the walk, we had activities in school, right? Let's walk in pairs. At this point, you need to walk in single file. So if you're going through Glen Owen, the quick way to Craigan is through Glen Owen from Holy Family. So there are parts there that there is no pathway. You're going in through rough ground, so you have to be single file. And then we had walks around the Holy Family Ballinagort area to prepare the children. So there was that. But they also had a passport. So just as the Camino de Santiago, yes. You have a passport, you get stamped at each station. Well, the children had the exact same, and as part of that passport, they did their time, distance, speed. What time did we leave at? How long did it take us? And then work out the speed that we were travelling, the average speed. They also had, because they also had a section where they had to write who was I walking with and what did we talk about. So as a keepsake into the future. So in 20 years' time, if the children hold on to their passports, right? Who was I? Oh, I remember that person, and this is what we talked about at that time. And then, of course, the parish priests were great. Father Fall in Craigan was fantastic. He took the children, explained the history of the church and significant events occurred in the church, and the cost and the materials used in the building, and how the church is used today. So there was so much learning in so many ways. They also found out about their social history, and so, for example, we stopped at Claremont Presbyterian Church, used to be Claremont, and then now why it's not used as a church today, and what was the process for it not becoming a church.
Tell us some of the things that children commented on. What do you think? What surprised you about some of the discoveries or insights?
Well, one of the things that surprised me and almost gave me a heart attack as well, because you assume sometimes that the children understand and know this, but we were walking to St Columns in the waterside, so we came down the Rock Road and out along the river. And one of the children mentioned about the river, the breadth of the river, and so we stopped and I said, if you look across into the waterside, you'll see the hills there, and if a raindrop falls on this side, it will come into the foyle, but if it falls the other side, it'll go into the fahan. And some of the children never considered, where does the rain go? Why does the river fill up so quickly, and so forth. So there's things like that, and then there'd be personal things that the children would say in terms of where their parents were married, where they were baptized, where their grandparents may have been married, or where they were buried from. So the connections with different parishes was there, and also some of, you can call them coincidences, but some of the things that occurred were absolutely amazing. We were in, again, I don't know why I'm always mentioning St Columns in the waterside, but we were in St Columns, and when we go to each of the churches, we would also sing a hymn when we were there. So, and we would also have either the priest or a local parishioner who could tell us about the history of the church. And we were there, we sang the song, and one of the people who was providing us with information said, our organist is Marcus Michel. And we said, Marcus used to be in Holy Family. And he was in Holy Family for many, many years. He supported our choir in Holy Family, and then he had an illness which caused him to lose 2 fingers. So he had to relearn how to play the organ. Now, I hadn't seen Marcus in maybe 7 years, so we tripsied back from the waterside, came round the corner at Holy Family, just coming up to the church, and who steps out of the car but Marcus? And we just said, Marcus, we've been talking about you all day, and we introduced the children to him. So there's things like that which occurred as well. So there's so much learning about your local environment, but particularly about your church history.
And it probably gave rise to some conversations in families. Granda, do you know? And then Granda would tell stories, or Granny would tell stories, or aunts or uncles or whatever. It probably linked up things.
Absolutely.
For some children.
And Bishop, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because that actually happened. There was a grandfather who came in to the school shortly after we were doing the walks, one of the walks, and he brought in a prayer book that he had from his time making his first communion, and he was able to talk about that. So there was those conversations which would have been taking place at home, and obviously when you're in different parishes, you would have children who have grandparents from those areas or parents, and you would be sending questions back home to get further detail. So the children gain so much out of it in terms of understanding, but also appreciation of difference. Because one of the things that I didn't mention to you was we also travelled to St Augustine's Church on the Walls. We went to St Colum's Cathedral, where the children were able to see a 400-year-old Bible. And we went to the Presbyterian Church. So it was great for the children to see the different spiritual history of the city, and also to find out about different faith traditions as well.
Great. Well, now, this is something you did here, based out of Holy Family in Ballymacroarty. Is it something that could be done in other parts of the country? I mean, you did it in a city environment, an urban environment.
Yes. Well, absolutely, because it could be done very, very easily anywhere, really. Anywhere where you have different, if it's a village scenario, if there's a village school and there's one church there, or maybe there's 2 churches in different traditions, then you have that option. But also it's very easy for a bus journey to the next village and start off your walk at a central point, and again find out about the history of that church and that village and that community, and it helps you to get again respect for difference, and also an understanding of the amount of contribution that your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents made, so that we would have the faith tradition that we have today. Because Bishop, prior to our conversation, we were talking about Mass rocks. Look at the effort that people made to go to Mass, to a Mass rock, way back in time.
When there weren't churches.
Mm-hmm. And look at the splendorous churches that we have throughout the city and throughout the country, and that we can avail, and children should be availing.
And I suppose the names of churches can be interesting for some people as well. There's a history behind why one saw Sacred Heart or Holy Family or Our Lady of Lourdes or St Columba. Or
Absolutely. And one of the things that the children loved in terms of Columba is a fantastic story. We know he's such a human saint in terms of his life. But when we left St Colum's in the waterside, we went to St Brecken's in St Colum's Park, if you know that old ruin of a church. But on the way, I said, you're going to see, I asked them the question, I said, who invented platform shoes? And they all came up with different answers. And I said, no, I'm going to take you to the man who invented them. And there's a statue of St Columba right beside St Brecken's Church in St Colum's Park. And that statue, if you go and look at it, is elevated off the ground. And then we were able to tell the whole Columban story from away down in Drumcliff, and from Garton down to Drumcliff, and then going to Scotland and all the Columban schools throughout Scotland and England, but also him coming back and why he came back and how he kept his promise of not touching Irish soil and also not seeing Ireland again. So all of those things the children have acquired during the journeys. And also, as a teacher and a principal, you're talking to the children every day. But what I found during those walks, I got to know so much more about the children, because you could be walking with the same couple of children the whole journey from Ballinagordy up to Craigan, and you got to know about their family and about their ambitions and so forth, that sometimes during the school day you don't get that opportunity. And I have to say that the teachers and the parents and the children loved it. They got so much out of it, and it's something that I would totally recommend. Very therapeutic as well.
Right, that's fascinating. Obviously, it comes from your passion for learning about the environment, but for our young people knowing who they are, where they've come from, and the more solidly they are rooted on the ground, the more they have platform shoes for walking into the future.
Well, exactly, but Bishop, you know where you come from and who you are, and also that the church is always there for you. You know, throughout your life, no matter where you end up.
Yes.
So all of those things is absolutely true, and it was a great experience, and I'll miss it this year. Maybe Mr. Doherty will invite me back to do it, I don't know.
Garry, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I found it absolutely fascinating. The passion of a school teacher and school principal, the wealth of local history that we walk or drive past every day and don't know anything about, and the whole learning opportunities that are simply provided by our physical environment. Garry, thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.